Freight Efficiency with NACFE's Mike Roth and Friends.
In episode 29, Jack Allen, Chairman and CEO of Proterra, joins us, where he talks about his career at Navistar, how he ended up at Proterra, the progression of electrification in the transportation sector, and how he sees Proterra fitting into that process. We also have a spirited discussion about some often overlooked factors in the electric vehicle total cost of ownership calculations.
Today we have joining us Jack Allen. He's Chairman and CEO of Proterra and someone I've known a really long time. So Jack, I'm excited to talk to you and catch up on things. Welcome to my podcast.
Hey, thanks, Mike. It's great to be here.
You know, this podcast called Freight Efficiency with NACFE's Mike Roth and Friends, kind of a catchy little thing. And I have to say, you might win the award so far. We've done about 30 of these for knowing me the longest.
Well, I do remember back in the late 90s or mid 90s, being on the interview team for you to come to work at Navistar in Fort Wayne.
Tell us about your career. I mean, how did you get into trucking? Was it all with Navistar, maybe International Harvester, but a little bit about your career and then what led you to Proterra?
Sure. So I was blessed to have a wonderful career at Navistar. I spent 33 years there. Started as an engineer and did a lot when I would have met you, would have done a lot of product planning around that period of time. I lived on the West Coast as the regional sales manager in the early 90s. I had the opportunity to run the Navistar Ford joint venture. I was in our parts group, our engine group, and truck group. And, I retired early. I was only 56 years old. I was a chief operating officer at the time in 2015. And, I had a great relationship with Troy and with the board. But I just felt that, that what Troy really needed to do was develop the next tier of leaders at Navistar. Troy and I were very close in age. And so I thought it was best for me to go do something else. And it worked out. Troy, put a couple of people in key positions. And today, Persio Lisboa is the CEO of Navistar. So succession planning can work when it's done thoughtfully.
I grew up a farmer in Ohio, and my grandfather was as true an International Harvester, equipment owner, as anybody. I remember when Harvester had some trouble building corn planters and he had to buy a John Deere, he kept that in the barn unless it was in the field, because he didn't want anybody to see that he had a green piece of equipment. And those, and so I felt it a real honor to come to Navistar, and there was some great stuff we did in the 90s and 2000s. So very proud of those days. I mean, anything strike you in those times? I'm sure that does.
I think that, competing in a really tough market, was something that, it always struck me was the resilience of the people at Navistar to handle any challenges that, that the company had. And overcome them. The dealers were, just a great asset for the company. I made many, many lifelong friends. So, I was really, really thrilled to have the opportunities that were presented to me at Navistar.
You're young and retired, and you're trying to figure it out. Why Proterra, and how did that happen?
Well, I was asked by an investment company called Generation Investment Management. They wanted to make a investment into Proterra. This is a big London-based venture capital company that's run by Al Gore and David Blood. So I did some work for them, some due diligence with them, and I went out to Burlingame. I met Ryan Popple, met some of the other employees, and I was like, wow, this is really neat. And I thought, this technology really has the opportunity to completely disrupt the diesel commercial vehicle market that I had to spend 33 years in. So they asked me to go on the board, which I did back in 2017. At the time, the company was just making transit buses, and I thought there was a great opportunity for this company to take their technology and become a tier one. So I was happy to go on the board and help them do that. And then about 15 months ago, they asked me to be the CEO as the company is moving out of being a private company into being a public company and really needing to scale up the business. So I'm still young, so I agreed to do that. I did not know how to spell the word COVID when I agreed to do that.
None of us did.
None of us did. So it's been a really wild 15 months, both from a fundraising standpoint, but also, all the developments here in EV and the acceleration of, the whole EV story here in the United States and frankly around the world.
Yeah, this is kind of eerie, how we sort of I don't know, some of the opportunities that we've each had over the last 20 years have kind of bounced into one another. So when my last role at Navistar was on fuel economy and helping create a strategy going forward. And part of that was working with the DOE and, the 21st Century Truck Partnership and so forth. And somehow, I don't remember how, but somehow in about maybe 2008 or 9, I was in Birmingham and met Dale Hill and the team there. And then again in Greenville, South Carolina, working on, I recall Proterra was exploring some of these delivery vans
Sure.
back a long time ago. So it's just interesting. And so, to see an idea back then move to probably then, production of buses, like you mentioned, to now scaling up is probably your biggest challenge or your biggest thinking right now. Do I kind of have that right?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, this industry is at an incredible inflection point, right now. So, you're right. This company does have a storied history. I think some of the things that we're most proud of is, first off, it's an American company and it's an American technology leader with technology that was developed here in America. And that's something that's really, I think, critical to the company. But this company is not it's not a PowerPoint company. This company has built 300 megawatt hours of battery systems. We've sold over 1,000 transit buses. We've installed 45 megawatts of charging capacity. We have partnerships now on a tier one with over 8 companies, including premier brands like Daimler and Komatsu. So what we really want to do is we want to build the EV technologies that power the world's best performing commercial vehicles. That's kind of our mantra right now.
We've been working on electric trucks since 2018, and I got to say I was pretty much batteries really hauling freight. You got to be kidding me. And I've I don't know if I've come full circle, but I've come an awfully long way, and so has the NACFE team. And the whole ecosystem of electric heavy duty vehicles, pretty quickly somebody will say in a meeting, well, the beachhead or the first wave is transit buses, and then we're going to move into medium box trucks and ultimately heavy and so forth. But we hear that all over the place, and you're living it. I mean, you're right in that detail. I mean, it's got to make you feel like you're really have a head start on things.
Yeah, I mean, clearly transit buses are going first, and it's going for a couple of reasons. Certainly there's city and state mandates where the cities and states are mandating this is what we're going to do. But the total cost of ownership right now is around 6 years break even on a transit bus, and transit buses run for 12 years. So that's really why transit buses have gone first. It's because of the miles that you put on them and the time that the customer keeps the vehicle. So transit buses are first. We're convinced second is school buses, and that's right underway right now. Third is going to be delivery vehicles, and that's certainly starting up in earnest, both class 3 all the way up to class 7 vehicles. After that, we believe that port trucks, so class 8 day cabs going in and out of ports, are going to make a lot of sense, and they're probably going to get mandated also. And then we'll see, medium duty pickup and delivery vehicles that go home every night would be the next one. Then probably some more Class 8 vocational vehicles, and then the holy grail, of course, is Class 8 long haul. That we're biased. We believe that by the time anybody's ready for fuel cell, batteries will be there first, and the economics around the batteries will be better, and there won't need to be the big expenditure of infrastructure for hydrogen.
Boy, that's exactly what NACFE is predicting as well. I mean, a couple of nuances that especially in moving goods, the terminal tractors, electrifying terminal tractors come to mind, and then the other thing that we keep discovering and thinking about is these return to base, day cab regional haul tractors. That's a growing segment with all the technology around knowing where the freight is and being more predictable and moving goods. But maybe you don't want to give us any insight, but are you planning on participating with Proterra in all those markets, or you'll just look at each one as they come after transit school buses?
We're really focused for the commercial vehicle segment as being a tier one. We've looked at producing the whole vehicle, and, school buses was a great example. We studied that forever. But, there's 3 really good brands of school buses out there today with, distribution and sales networks and relationships that are established for many, many, many years. And we just thought the best way for us to participate in school buses was to focus on the powered aspect of that. And so that's where we're going on school buses. And frankly, that's more than likely where we're going to be as a tier one across commercial vehicles and construction equipment.
Makes a lot of sense. I'm really interested to see how, and maybe you can comment on it, how far that integration will go. I mean, do you end up getting into the axles and into cooling, or can you just stay focused on motors and batteries and the computers to run them? Or I guess time will tell how.
Yeah, time will tell. So we do all that for ourselves in the transit market today. We have our own e-axle. We do, we have the battery system. We have the high voltage junction box and all the controls associated with that. And we offer all those products to our tier one partners. And it's kind of a menu. Some want to do more themselves, some want us to do everything. So we're very versatile. It's a good, nimble startup company. We're very versatile in that front.
We reconnected a couple of weeks ago after not talking for a number of years, and you noticed that I and NACFE was helping the Department of Energy announce some funding opportunities, Super Truck 3 and a more focused passenger car award. And we sent some texts back and forth, Jack, and so forth. And then just a week later, you one-upped me with hosting President Biden in a virtual tour of the Greenville manufacturing facility, and then you spoke at the summit. So what was it like telling Proterra's story to a huge audience, including the President of the United States?
Yeah, it was quite surreal, Mike, I have to tell you. This administration, from the President to the Secretary of Energy to the Secretary of Transportation, they are incredibly focused on moving this country towards electrification and creating the jobs associated with it. Senator Schumer introduced a bill yesterday to provide $73 billion of funding to convert the entire 70,000 transit buses in this country to electrification. So there is just an incredible amount going on. And as such, I was invited to be one of the 40 people to speak a couple of Fridays ago at President Biden's summit on climate, which was just an incredible honor for Proterra to do that. And then, to get the president ready for that summit, we were asked to give him a tour of our facility in Greenville And then just the way logistics worked out, we did it on the whole thing on Zoom. So we took about an hour, and I walked through the factory talking to the president and introduced him to many of our employees that were doing work on the line, and they showed him what they did in their station, and he was able to get a really good feel for what it takes to put together a transit bus with an electric battery system.
It was cool, and I watched it, and I think what you did there with the folks building the buses, I remember the woman on top of the bus talking about how she installs the cooling system, and some people in other parts of the assembly line. I think that's really good, and it really shows the people really making it happen. And the same thing we did when we did the DOE announcement. I had a couple of truckers, calling in, actually on Zoom, participating from their truck cabs at truck stops in Ohio and Iowa. So I do think that perspective is really a good thing when we talk about, these are big challenges and this is big money. And making it real is very helpful.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with it. We chose the employees very carefully, and then we just told them on Monday, hey, we were going to have some high level visitors on Tuesday, so just want to give you a little bit of heads up. And then they work 10-hour shifts there, so we have a 5:45 a.m. meeting, and we told everybody what was going to happen. The emotions were just incredible, and they were like, can I tell my husband? Can I tell my family? And we said, sure, you just go to whitehouse.gov/live, and they're going to be able to see you. So it was really just phenomenal for our employees to have, the once in a lifetime opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with the President of the United States.
Yeah. So we got between you and me, we got, 60 years of building diesel truck experience, trying to act like we know electrification. So I got two things I'd like to yet explore in our time together. One is, you mentioned TCO a few minutes ago, and the TCO of a battery electric heavy duty vehicle, for you it's a bus, versus the diesel counterpart. And, we're all trying to figure out the hard, the soft, and the extra soft, my team likes to call it, benefits and costs that build up that TCO. What are a couple of TCO items that our audience may not understand yet that you have kind of figured out in transit buses that you think might relate to trucks? Is it maintenance, or is it that the driver likes it? Or what are some things that you found that you think are significant?
Well, on the soft sides, the drivers love them. The transit agency can't get a driver to go back to diesel once they've had it in electric. The acceleration, the quietness. And I think maybe that's one of the things that nobody talks about is how, what I'll call noise pollution, that you and I both know is inevitable in a diesel powered product. So one of the soft things here is certainly noise. I think the other thing that is really not contemplated as much is downtime in people's calculations. They calculate, okay, I don't have to do an oil change. I don't have to do brakes as often. And they calculate the dollars associated with that. But they don't calculate often, as I've seen in TCO calculations, the fact that that vehicle is on the road generating revenue in an electric vehicle when in a diesel. Not only is it, getting a brake job, it's also, down and not collecting revenue. So those are a couple of things that I think are often not considered.
Yeah, and I think one way I look at that final one around downtime and so forth is, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, all fleets had, 10% more vehicles than they needed because the downtime was so unpredictable, so prevalent. Now we've had our, challenges over the, in the last couple of decades with trucks, but for the most part, they've become more dependable, more reliable, and the fleets don't have those backup trucks and buses to just put into service. So I agree with you, and I absolutely think, it's something we've got to be, conservative on. It's easy to say, I lost this much revenue and it's this huge number. But, even if you look at 10 or 20% of that is a significant. So yeah, thanks for that. The other thing I wanted to explore with you is around all these different truck dealerships, service organizations. When we think about, and maybe we fast forward 20 years when, there's a lot of electric vehicles out there in these markets you talked about earlier, what's going to be, we've got all these new OEMs that are emerging. So what are some of the things that you see from an industry standpoint that we should be doing a little more work on now to prepare?
I do think the dealership model is going to get tested here and turned upside down over, not in the next couple of years. There's such a huge park of vehicles out there on, diesels that it's probably not going to impact while I'm still working. But, in the 10 to 20 year standpoint, I think it's going to be a lot different. I'll just give you an example. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, I turned in my Tesla, 3-year lease on my Tesla. The only thing I did to that vehicle in 3 years was once change the windshield wipers myself. That's it. That's it. And it's never once was in for service. Over-the-air updates are a phenomenal thing to reprogram a vehicle, and I've not seen anybody do it better than Tesla has. So, I do believe that the dealership model is going to get tested here. One of the reasons that Proterra went into transit is it's all direct sales. There is no dealership, and the transit agencies either outsource service or 90-some% of them do all their service themselves.
Yeah, and I do think this is a journey, not a like the proverbial marathon, not a sprint. I mean, I had a conversation with some folks that do a lot of work with truck dealers in the last couple of weeks, and they were nearly panicking about electric trucks. And I'm like, whoa, keep your powder dry. This is, yes, you should be thinking about it, should be looking at it. But this is more of a evolution, not a revolution. And professional executives that, take a good approach to it. Now it's a big change, probably one of the biggest ones we'll see in our careers, even though, maybe on the back end of them, but I mean, it's not like it's, something that, except in some certain niches, maybe that are, that you need to panic over.
Yeah, you and I both know that dealers make their money on parts and service, and servicing diesel vehicles is going to be around for a long, long time.
Final question. We always run out of time pretty quick. As you're thinking about it, and maybe Jack thinks specifically to trucks, right? Those box trucks and
Sure.
drayage and van and heavy tractors, whether it's regional or sleeper long haul and all that kind of thing. So, there's a whole big ecosystem that's happening here with utilities and with all kinds of things, managed charging, all kinds of organizations out there. So, what's your advice to that whole ecosystem as we go about these, going from just one-off deployments to really scaling in some of these segments?
To me, everybody's paying a lot of attention to the vehicles right now. I think they need to spend more time thinking about charging and thinking about infrastructure. That is still, very undefined. Proterra's in the charging business today. We have a complete business unit that does charging. The reason we got into that is that our transit customers didn't know where to turn to be able to charge their vehicles. So there was nobody focused on fleet charging today. A lot of people focused on, on the charge points of the world, focused on the automobile side, light duty side, but nobody was focused on commercial vehicle charging, and that's changing right now. But the fleets that we've had conversations with on the commercial vehicle side lately have all been about charging and how they should be thinking about infrastructure and relationships with utilities.
Hey, Jack, it's been great, kind of rekindling a couple of old memories, and
Sure.
then, really looking at this market from where we've been and where we're going. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for being on.
My pleasure, and I'm sure we'll be able to talk more in the future as time progresses on electrification of North American commercial vehicles.
Freight Efficiency with NACFI's Mike Roth and Friends.